So, what is a Confederate? Pretty straightforward. We're an individual who plays a role in simulation. That role can vary from day to day or from scenario to scenario. Usually that role is played by a nurse, especially in any sort of nursing or medical simulations, or it can be any other health professional. Sometimes we use parents, sometimes we use relatives if they're quite well known to us. And Confederates are also really good at playing the role of the simulated patient, because you can get that verbal feedback, you can get that colour feedback if we can enlarge them up. And also they can be difficult in giving a history, or they can be straightforward giving a history, or they can give the history that people normally give to us. Are you allergic to anything? No. Do you take any tablets for anything? I take a red one. And then somebody else will ask them and they may say, well actually yes, I'm allergic to penicillin and I do take a red tablet for my blood pressure. So we can make it as realistic or as unrealistic, well it's not unrealistic, more sort of challenging for people if needed to be. So the purposes of a Confederate are really sort of fivefold. Mainly it's for guidance during the scenario, safety of the participants and the mannequins, it adds in additional realism. It bridges that divide between the faculty and the learners, because normally the faculty are behind the glass or beside, out of the room, so they can't sort of see what we can see. They see things from different angles as we do. And also you can use a Confederate to facilitate research, to reduce bias. So in the guidance section, we orientate the learners to the scenario, we help them work in an unfamiliar environment, maybe with unfamiliar equipment. We just sort of say to people coming in, just imagine that you're playing your normal role, but you've asked to be working in a different hospital or a different department, but you're working your normal role as a nurse, or if you're a medical staff, you've been asked to do a locum in a different department. So although you know your role, you're not familiar with the equipment and you're not familiar with the skill mix that you're working with. And also, we can be invaluable in the location of any equipment that we can't find, or maybe just not looking in the right place what they're used to, and also the troubleshooting the equipment if the defib doesn't work, or the monitor won't go, or the blood pressure won't cycle, or any sort of difficulties that are in there. We can prompt the learners at specific points if we want to sort of move the scenario on a bit, or if we feel that they're missing something. But mainly the guidance is centred around getting them to achieve the learning objectives. And just that we touched on safety earlier on, and just to reiterate, safety within the room, safety between the participants, protecting the simulators from damage. It's just sort of being mindful of people if there's a lot of what I call anaesthetic cobwebs at the end of the bed, or tangle pixies underneath, or anybody's slipped. Sorry, if there's a potential for slips, trips, falls, sharps. You may need to reiterate about the safety of the mannequin during the scenario, especially if they're sort of focused on the airway or focused about doing any invasive task. And this is the bit I really like. We add in some additional realism. So there's usually a backstory behind the Confederate playing a role. But if we're playing a parent, we can just say, oh, why is he so sleepy? He's not normally this sleepy. Why is he so blue? Why isn't he waking up? Because you don't get those visual clues from the mannequin. And also, we can also give a backstory to what the patient's not telling you or what they're not able to tell you. Some of us can cry on command, some of us like being disruptive, some of us like shouting, swearing, and people can find that quite challenging. But if we're going to do challenging scenarios, we'd rather do them in a nice, safe environment, so we know they're not really going to come to any injury. And this bridging between the faculty and the learners, we're always wired up to the control room with just a little headset and a two-way radio, so they can feed information from the control room to say, can you cycle the blood pressure again, or have they done a temperature, or do you know who the team leader is, and we can feed that information back. by sort of reiterating any tasks that have been done, they want to put a central line in, or they want them to catheterise, or mainly sort of around giving drugs or any sort of interventions that they're doing, because if Sarah or Holly, excuse me, can't hear that they're giving sedative drugs or any painkillers, they then can't manipulate the software into reflecting those changes. And if there's a lot of people and they've got their back to the windows, they can't often see what drugs are being given, or if it's quite noisy, they can't hear, you know, what we've actually done. And sometimes there can be a lot of activity in various areas of the room as well. And if we are involved in debriefing, which tends not to happen, mainly because we're quite thin on the ground and we're changing the room over, we can offer inside experience. You know, we can often say we weren't sure who the team leader was. We felt like task saturated. We didn't feel that there was a closed loop in that it was, can somebody do this, as opposed to Alison, can you do this, Grace, can you do that? But also to feedback when they've been really good as well, because we quite often find, although it's a very, very stressful situation for participants, they're actually checking in with us in the middle of the scenario. Are you all right? Have I asked you to do too much? Are you okay? And it's just really, really nice to be able to feed that back, say, I actually felt really supported in there, thank you. Or I like the way you did that. You know, or from a nursing point of view, you actually included us. And the research. Yes, we can be very undercover if we want to. We can be in the room and just quietly observe what things are given. We can see if they're silently, well, we can actually see them drawing up the drugs, checking the name bags. Just observe the actions and the data that they maybe can't see if they're stood right in front of where it's running the software or collecting the data. If they can't see what's actually happening, we can be that sort of bridge. And I guess if you've got 20 students, if you standardise the way that the information is given, if it's the same person giving the same information at the same time, you're going to reduce any risk of sort of bias or whatever. Okay, a challenge for participants. If you were a participant in a scenario and you had a Confederate, what might you think might pose a challenge for you? If you knew me and I was playing a strop bag, would you think, well, that's what she's like in real life? Or would you think, would that put you off? I think it's thrown a few people. And sometimes we come in, we introduce ourselves, and people don't actually know that we're part of that scenario, because they haven't taken that on board, or they lose sort of situational awareness a little bit. Yeah, and if like say, if we're known to the participant, like I had to wear a fat suit one day and break my ankle and get stuck behind a concrete pillow, and one of my friends and work colleagues, who shall remain nameless, just laughed. So they found it funny because I was crying, but they found it funny because they knew I'm not that big. Whereas I think if it was somebody who they didn't know, they might have been able to buy into that scenario more. Well, they just laughed. So the challenges faced as a Confederate in the room. If we ask a very senior clinician to play the role of a medical student or a junior nurse or an undergrad nurse, they may find that really difficult, because by the time you're quite senior, you get almost like sort of muscle memory, so you know what you're doing without even thinking about it. Your hands are doing things without your brain catching up, and vice versa. Your brain's going quicker than your hands. And some people can just end up overacting, like being, oh, I can't do that, can't do that, can't do that, or being like, oh, that hurts when you do the blood pressure and things like that. So that can be quite distracting. And similarly, if you ask somebody to act up in a role, because they're not familiar with sort of body language, verbal tone, things like that, that can lead to underacting. And certainly, I have difficulty in certain scenarios separating my personal role from the role in the scenario. Like, it makes me feel physically scratchy if I know somebody is having a heart attack and they're not attached to a cardiac monitor. Similarly, it makes me feel scratchy if they don't have cannula in, or I don't know where the defib is. Even though it's a scenario, it's not something that I would do in what I would term real life, so I find that quite difficult. I also find it quite challenging when I can hear the SATs dropping to not intervene. But if I started intervening all the time and over-helping, which I do have a tendency to overhelp, you can derive from what their learning objectives can be. So sometimes you've just got to scratch in the corner. Any questions so far? There's lots of layers. If we're asked to portray a stereotyped doctor with negative associations like, well, I'm off now, you'll have to stop the list, I'm off for a game of golf, or a nurse manager like, don't ring me, I'll ring you, I'm off to do the roster. We've got to say why we're playing in the sort of, in that scenario or in the debrief. We've got to sort of say why we're playing that negative role, otherwise they might think, what are you doing? You know, we could have two Confederates, and when one of us has been a horrible nurse manager, the other one go, oh God, she's always like this. So it sort of draws them into thinking, well, they are actually playing a role. But we tend not to stereotype anybody negatively unless there's a need for it in that scenario. And not everyone can act. And not everybody wants to act. Not everybody wants to be a Confederate. And, you know, maybe have to display negative emotions or negative behaviour patterns. So don't ever force anyone into that role, because it's, you know, there's a lot to think about within that role anyway, without sort of saying, you don't mind, do you, love? You didn't step forward, we just stepped back. And just remember, when using actors or people that are not familiar with the sort of scenarios that you run in, that it can take them a long time or more training or more sort of time investment into sort of bringing them up to the level that you want to act in that scenario. If you got maybe an actor from Whopper and you expected them to act as a senior doctor, you'd have to do quite a lot of time with them. This is the lingo that we're going to use, this is the equipment that we're going to use. So it actually looked really natural when they're in the scenario, rather than thinking, I need to do a blood pressure, what maybe do I need? Because that's not familiar to them. And also they may not be used to that quick, rush, high stress environment. And then if you add new life to the mix and conflicting, you know, or not destructive, but challenging Confederates into that role, that can really sort of make them feel a little bit uneasy. So when you're training for this Confederate role and you're a person, there's always a who behind that person. They're not just, oh, Mrs. Jones's relative. She's got a backstory. You know, she's married, she's got 2 kids, she's looking after the cat, she helps her mum with the shopping, and you know, sometimes they've got quite a lot of layers underneath that you can find out just by talking with them. And they can play different roles, be very introverted. Also, just a learning activity. Before we go into a scenario, we have a little group discussion about these are learning objectives, these are the participants that are going to go in, this is their sort of learning level, is where they are. We're going to start the scenario in 5 minutes after we've done a sound check. We'll let you all know when we're ready. We're going to run it for approximately 10-15 minutes, which can obviously be longer if they haven't achieved their objectives, or shorter if they've sort of reached the learning objectives quite quickly. And also whether we're going to be involved in the debrief or not, which we tend not to do, but on occasion we have been, which is good. We need to think about the context, like why is the Confederate in this scenario? What role are they going to play? Are they going to be competent, or are they going to need a little bit of nurturing? Do they need direction? And if you are directed, what's your likely progression? You're not suddenly going to turn from, you know, I need a lot of direction, and then towards the end of the scenario you'll be absolutely marvellous, because that's just not true. And then what triggers and cues and prompts are relevant within that scenario. If you feel that it's going off track, or you can see it going off track, just sort of adding in relevant clues like, oh, well, the heart rate seems to have gone up a bit, or do you want to check the blood pressure again, or it's a funny smell, or something like that, or do you want to listen to the chest, or don't think the chest's rising and falling equally, and that can just, you know, help them achieve some of the objectives. We always have a rehearsal a few days beforehand, especially if it's new scenarios. If you're piloting new scenarios, you need to run through it about 3 or 4 times just to add bits and bobs in. It helps us sort of to be able to see how the scenario is supposed to progress, even though sometimes it doesn't always. There'll always be somebody or something on the day or some sort of technical issue that will derail it slightly, but that's fine. We just pick it up and run with it. Like I said, just don't pressurise anyone into a role. Because if you add in acting in a role that you're not particularly familiar with, acting in, you know, in a simulated environment, we all know how you act in a simulated environment may not be an accurate reflection of what you are in your own, you know, in your own life. Then add in two participants wanting two different things at the same time, plus somebody from the control room talking to you. It's quite a cognitive load to take on. Yes, again, running through the scenarios allows us to pick up, just by simply running through a couple of times, things that we may have missed. We may have missed a temperature off, or we may have missed a lab value, or anything like that. We may be missing some verbal cues that we hadn't thought about when we actually print it out on paper and read through it. We may be missing some props, extra equipment or moulage. Yeah, it's important to have a couple of run-throughs. It's also important to have clearly defined beginning and ending points, otherwise sometimes everybody can be left dangling on a bit of string, so to speak. And if we introduce ourselves right at the beginning when they come in the room, hi, I'm Alison, or I'm Grace, I'm your nurse for today, or I'm your anaesthetic tech for today, or I'm one of the ED nurses, it helps them feel that you're actually in there to help them and support them in any part of the role, not just somebody that's wandered in, because the amount of people we get just wandering in off the street. Is this Barry your love, which is right underneath us, or we've got a delivery, and we're like, it says on the door, course in progress, but that's fine. See, you know, you just don't want people to think, she's just wandered in, who's that? Yeah, and also we stay in character when the simulation's finished. We don't immediately go, oh, thank God that's over. We always stay in role when the participants leave the room, because a lot of participants don't want to leave a particularly ill patient, or they don't want to leave a child on their own, or they don't want to sort of leave without, it's almost like you've got to give them that few seconds just to think, right, okay, I just need to detach and go to the debriefing room. But some people will sort of help you tidy up, or want to debrief amongst themselves. We just really need to stay in role, get them out to debrief. Okay, and this goes back to our two-way radio. So we can help the people who are debriefing, help the people in the control room, just communicate tasks or procedures that have been done in the scenario, and they can also ask us for clarification on anything. If we've missed anything or haven't seen an intervention, they can let us know, or they can just say, what are they giving, what are they giving, what are they doing, what size tube is that? Or if somebody has an unexpected sort of action that you're not expecting, which sometimes people just freeze, sometimes people can, you can actually see them sort of distancing themselves from the scenario. It's almost like they drop out and sort of think, oh, the hell am I? That can take a couple of seconds for them to come back in, and it may be that somebody's seen that and just said, just check if they're all right. Just checking in with them, make sure they're okay. Or if somebody's, you know, somebody may be aggressive towards another participant because they're stressed, they're tired, some of the equipment's broken, and they can just really start to feel that pressure. It's, you know, like I say, just be aware that it can place a significant cognitive load on the Confederate when there's lots of noise in the room, and then you've got people talking to you, and you've got phones ringing, and you're trying to take lab values, and for some reason in the afternoon we always get interference. Doesn't matter what channel we are, we always get interference with a guy called Dave all the time. Is that you, Dave? And whoever speaks to him is a right old potty mouth, and we're stood going, because if we can't hear anything, we can't say what. We just tap our ears if we say I didn't hear. Tap it again, I really didn't hear. And then the third time we go to the phone and say, I've just got a message on my pager, is that Dave? And they go, yeah, just switch to another channel. Because it's, you hear a voice in your ear, are you alright, you get. Can't do that in the middle of a scenario, do they? Schizophrenic. But it can be really difficult. You know, somebody's asking you questions and you're like, yeah, oh. Yeah, we have signals, yeah. We heard the sound check. Did they give that drug? Did they put the What drugs are you giving? What drugs are you giving again? Sorry, I've forgotten. Yeah, so it helps people driving the software as well. Yeah, so we talked a little bit about this morning, doing the room familiarisation, say the Confederates, say what the roles are, and explain that we're playing a designated scenario-specific role, because some people, God love them, honestly think, and it's really sad that they get that impression that sometimes we're there to trip them up. We're not. That's the last thing we want. It really hurts when people say that. Well, you were trying to trip me up in there. I wasn't. Or was I? I've already heard. I wasn't just playing a role. Yeah. So like I say, if we are involved in debriefing, it's always out of role. If we're playing an angry role or an upset role, we don't come into the debriefing that role, we come out of role and just, help with the debriefing. Yeah. And we can offer different and valuable insights, things that the people haven't seen behind the glass. We can add in, there was a reassuring touch there, or just the body language was open or relaxed. Just things like that, things that the people may not be aware of. A lot of people's body language on the tape, you don't actually realise you do, especially when you're communicating. Some people will say, okay, this conversation's over, and they'll turn their back to you, which, okay, conversation's over, there's no ambiguity about that, but they don't actually realise what they do. It's kind of fascinating. I talk a lot with my hands. So debriefing us after a scenario, it can be mentally, emotionally and physically draining. If you're playing roles all day, turning rooms over, mobilizing patients up, dealing with people's high stress levels, dealing with just the general demands of it all. We always say about simulation, what you see is like an iceberg, it's 1/10 above the water. That's what people see. Plain sailing, streamless, come on a course, fantastic day. Don't actually see the 9/10 underneath that can be literally blood, sweat, stomach lining, teeth enamel, all the different layers that are involved in simulation. Just for a 15-minute simulation, it can take you literally all day prepping. So that's enough about us whinging, we're all tired. And if it's been a particularly demanding scenario, in any shape or form, it's always good to just check in with your mate, so you're alright after that, that was really difficult. Especially if somebody's struggling, it can be really difficult for us to sort of see them struggle, even though that's sometimes part of their learning objectives. That's the only way they're going to learn. It's just, sometimes that can be difficult, so we check in. Even if it's not after every scenario, which we try to be, at least before we go home. We don't talk about the participants, we just sort of say, how did today go on? We can just say, oh God, that was tough, but yeah. We just need to sort of offload, just so we don't take it all home. Any questions? Or have I blanked on you?
How do you get your Confederates? Is it your team? You've got a whole team that you pull in, that work in different areas when you need them?
Pretty much, yeah. We've got people, Chris is an amazing Confederate, I fell into the role. And then we just usually use people with a nursing background. If it's an ED scenario, if we don't know any ED nurses, we'll play with ED nurses. But if we do anything specifically anaesthetics, because of the drugs and the equipment and demands, we tend to get people that are more sort of geared towards anaesthetics. But any volunteers and that stuff, yeah. Some people love it, some people find it really challenging and difficult. I guess it just, I don't know what we do, but it is I find it a very, very rewarding job, because you learn just as much as the people in there, even if it's the same scenario 6 or 7 times, the same scenarios and the same courses. You just think, that's a nice way to do it, or I really like the way they spoke, or I really like the way that ran. We often find that at the beginning of a course, the noise level is quite noisy in the room, and then as people sort of take on that leadership role and get more confidence in the simulated environment, the noise level goes down. So, Thank you.
Thank you.